Let me see. Okay, we've got a couple people joining us on the webcast, so that's awesome. And we've got the phone lines. We've got people joining us on Facebook Live. Hi there. So I am really excited to be talking with you today. We just came back from the hardware show, as many of you saw in the emails. I'm going to just ask who's on the line and wants to say a quick hello. Phone lines. Who's there? Where are you calling from? Hi. Hi, I see we've got New York, California, Washington, Colorado, Ohio, looks like Northern California, we got Washington. I think we might have one of the Walters team with us. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, perfect. We've got Kim. And then on Facebook Live, we've got Bill from Reno. And I'm not sure who all's on the webcast yet, but we'll get over there in a minute. So everybody, I'm going to mute your line for your privacy. And we've got a bunch of new people joining the show. So I want to just go over a little bit of logistics. I'm Amy Winslow, and Products to Profits is a company I started, oh gosh, a while ago. And we work specifically with consumer products for large volume sales, whether it's to corporations or to retail stores or through Amazon. Our specialty is things that you want to sell in high volume. So these shows are something we've been doing for well over 5 years. I think we're in 6 years now, and they're our public service. So we're going to open up the phone lines in a little bit to take questions, and I'm going to do a little bit of content here at the beginning. When I open up the phone line, please remember that when you ask your question, it would qualify as public disclosure of an invention. So if you haven't already filed for your patent, it would void your rights to file. So you got to hold back your special secret sauce, okay? So all that said, I want to actually start with something from Thomas Edison. And this is a quote that I read again very recently, and I love it. Every time I see it, it reminds me of really what it is to be an entrepreneur. So everybody, whatever you're doing, just stop for a second and really reflect about what this next sentence means. Opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like hard work. That's Thomas Edison, okay? So opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and it looks like hard work. In other words, it's not going to look like you want it to. Opportunity doesn't arrive on a silver platter, and it frequently is not the most impressive looking thing, but that's your opportunity and you take it. So today we're going to talk about generating connection and rapport. And one of the main things that I want to ground you in here is that it starts with a series of thinking and skills and habits, okay? So I'm going to run through some things. They're not in exact order, so they all relate to each other. But let's start with thinking. So one of the things that people miss when they're about going to a trade show, for example, or going to a meeting, or even in a phone conversation, is that they always, like, connectors and influencers and people that really have pull in any marketplace always are adding to the space, okay? Always add to the space. It's the context of how you show up is to be of contribution, to make sure that the event is a great event, to support the other people that are there instead of showing up just like passing out your card and spewing your pitch all over everybody. It's really a space of contribution. Always add to the space. I get invited to speak in front of large audiences and at some pretty prestigious events because I'm always looking to make it be a great event for the organizer and the organizer's audience. What it does for us professionally is secondary to that, and that's a little counterintuitive. So always add to the space. When you are thinking about creating rapport, you also have to have kind of a calm reflection and find a core of presence and peace inside yourself. There's something that's kind of intriguing, and that is this, that everyone who has influence or who has power in a community has a certain presence, okay? Now, I can look around a room because I've achieved a certain level of awareness. I can look around and I can actually see who are the other centers of influence in the room. You can watch the dynamics of the room and it'll pop out literally like they light up like a Christmas tree for you, of like, oh, that's the other person to meet here. That's the influencer. And it's very easy to recognize each other when you are operating with awareness, okay? So calm reflection before you go in. And I do that as a daily practice. I do a meditation and a prayer session almost every morning. And it's so that I come to a centered place so that I can show up cleanly and clearly with people. The third piece I want to talk about here is having a clear list. A clear list isn't like, oh, I want to meet this person or I want to meet that, but of what it is you're looking to cause and to have happen in the world. To have a clear list in your mind of what it is you're really up to is important, okay? So the fourth thing here is to be aware of reciprocity. It's really important to understand reciprocity and to be thinking, how can you help somebody? That relates to the next point, which is about giving, because reciprocity kicks in and we naturally want to reciprocate. So being aware of reciprocity, even in your conversation is a ping pong match, right? It's not a one-sided like slam at the person or be slammed at. It's a ping pong game, right? Like this. I'm showing everybody on Facebook Live. So when you are in a position where you give first, your giving has to be something of value to the other person. So it could be a lead, it could be a connection, it could even be encouragement, and it could be a testimonial or a recommendation for something, but it has to be of value to them, okay? If you're just giving out data that they don't care about, it's not really a give, okay? And that relates to actually showing up caring, like really caring about the other person's success. While we were at the hardware show last week, I was walking around the show aisles and I was judging one section of the inventors area, and everybody that I went to, it was really with a desire for them to be successful and a desire for them to do better at this show than they expected to or than they thought they would. And it was to encourage them as well as to judge them in 3 different areas. So even as a judge, my perspective was, how can I contribute? How can I make a difference for this person, for their business? It's really important contextually to be about that. And that requires the next point, which is for you to be present. You can feel it when someone's present and when they're not, or they're distracted by their phone. You can feel it on the other side. You can even feel it through a phone. When someone is not present in the conversation on the phone, it seems like you're a bit alone, right? And you've all had it happen in a conversation, I'm sure, where you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden their attention gets pulled by something and they don't really come fully back to the conversation. So your thinking is always about being present. And how can you be present with the person? There's some habits that you can use to develop this that will really help you. So we're going to talk about that next. So skills. Eye contact is one of the best skills you can generate and practice for yourself. It helps you pay attention and stay focused. Don't do the creepers one where it's, you're staring eye locked forever and ever. Maintain a natural eye contact. Most of us, especially if you're shy, you're going to avoid eye contact. And that can come across as less than honest or like you're trying to hide something. or just that you're uncomfortable in your own skin. So really work on maintaining a certain level of eye contact and extending it a bit, and adding a warm smile. It goes a long, long way to just do those things. Being clear about what you want is a skill, okay? The reason I say that is most of us, when we were little, we just thought things, right? We didn't actually necessarily think it through about what it is we were trying to have happen or create or what we really wanted. And so for some of us, we were clear about it and we got slammed when we asked for it. So it's really important for you to be clear about what it is you want so that you can ask from a place of naturalness about that when you're asking for whatever it is you want to partner with somebody on or collaborate with. Preparation is another skill set that most of us can work on. Having a clear list, review the attendees or exhibitors, prep what you want to ask about, right? I was reminded of this last week because we were so busy getting 6 client projects ready for the show that I didn't get my list written down and have the conversation with the team until sometime on Tuesday night, pretty late. And the show started Tuesday morning. But we were there and we had the list, but we didn't have it written down. We didn't have it defined exactly who was going to be about which priorities until the second day of the show. The second day of the show was actually more peaceful because we had the grounding conversation about it. So it's really important when you're going to a show or you're going to an event that's large for you that you prepare. I really recommend writing it down. We actually created a spreadsheet real quick and we said, okay, this client, this project, what resources are we looking for? Who do we need to meet? Who do we need to talk to? What are we trying to have happen for that client? So then we had a quick column that was like, who was going to take that on? And it allows us to follow up much more easily after the show too. So your preparation tees your follow-up, and your follow-up is probably where your money is going to be. So it's really important to prep for the results that you want to have happen. And I would encourage you, if it's your first show and you're not sure of all the results, I would encourage you to brainstorm with some friends or someone else who's already been to shows. Or if you're working with us, ask us what are results that you could be about creating out of your show, okay? There's a ton of ways to use events, and I'd really encourage you to write them down, especially if you have a team. You have to actually decide who's going to be looking out and be the point person on each of them. This next one is really funny, and it's going to sound so ridiculously obvious. However, I've watched this trip people up. Be friendly. Say hello to people, even in the elevators. I love that Kim is on the Facebook Live because we were laughing a bit last week. One of the people that I introduced Kim and Jeff to is Dale, and he's a sales rep that we've done some things with. And I met Dale and Paul in an elevator at the Venue Hotel about 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. Just because Dale has a policy to never ride in an elevator silent, right? To say hello to someone because everybody is there staring at the numbers. So he says hello to people in the elevators. Well, we met in the elevator, ended up having a great time at that show, able to collaborate a little bit, pass some leads back and forth. And every year, about the second day of the show, we meet and we do that again. And it's gotten to be this thing where we literally will walk each other around shows. We have the ability to do that, and it's from being friendly. Okay. In the email that I sent out this morning, I said that there was this one exhibitor that secretly a few people decided not to do business with, and it was because he wasn't friendly. He was kind of arrogant, and he was overly confident, and just he just wasn't the kind of person that you really you had warm fuzzies about, right? So being friendly actually brings leads to you. It brings contacts to you. It extends your reach past your circle of influence. And there's a line of being friendly and oversharing. So you do have to pay attention, but say hello to everyone with some eye contact, with a smile, with a sense of who you are, a sense of presence, and that'll really help you. Now, like I said before, there's another thing, I've been talking about it a lot today. It is a skill to generate presence. And I mean that from a standpoint of not look at me kind of presence, but of just being in a space, or when you walk in, people naturally go, oh, so-and-so is here, or oh, who's that? Because they feel something from you. So influencers in a room can absolutely see each other. I have some other friends that are also speakers that do a lot of different high profile things as well. And we've talked about this, that you can actually feel it when you walk into a room if you're tuned in. It's literally like they light up in your line of sight. So it's something to pay attention to. When you walk into a room, if you're about practicing presence, notice the other people's presence in the room, right? Just pay attention to it. It's not a judgment. It's a discernment so you can model it. Okay, let's move to habits here, and then I'm going to open up the phone lines and all the different methods today for some questions. So preparation. Preparation is a habit. And by preparation, I mean, yes, look at the exhibitor list like I talked about in the skill set, but I also mean your appearance and your energy, okay? So preparation in this as a habit means that you're taking good care of yourself, that you're eating a good breakfast, especially if you're going to an all-day event with a lot of people. You're going to need your energy, okay? So your appearance. I am one of these people that is aware that how I show up in the room is how I show up. So having paid attention to your appearance, the basic good hygiene principles and wearing clothes that you feel good in allows a peacefulness to show up and radiate from you. And it absolutely helps with your presence for you to be happy and excited and in love with how you feel, okay? Not in love with yourself, but in love with that you feel good inside is really important when you walk into a space when you're about generating presence, okay? It allows your shoulders to go back and down. It allows your body posture to work in your favor. So preparation in terms of maintaining your energy is really important. So good night's rest, feeling good in your clothes fitting properly, being dressed appropriately is a big deal. I know that I was talking with a client before the show, and it occurred to me that I should call and let them know what this show's typical attire is, because I had the uncomfortable experience years ago of showing up at this black tie event. It was a very high level event, and it said black tie optional on the invitation. Well, I was wearing a just above knee length black velvet dress. I was so uncomfortable all night because all the other women were in floor length. I learned at that moment that whenever it says black tie optional, it's not optional. It means black tie is going to be the best way to go. So it's the same thing with preparing to be at an event. Pay attention to your appearance because it allows you to be at peace and to be comfortable. Mindfulness is another habit. Paying attention to your breathing, deep breathing, breaths. It allows your body to calm and move out of an adrenaline state so that you'll show up more powerfully. And then this last habit, there's a word that I prefer over persistence. Persistence for many people crosses over into badgering, but this word is more helpful, and that's consistency. So a habit of consistency, of consistently doing the few things that ground you, that have you feel really good, that communicate consistently to your people is really important. Going to an event or being somewhere or giving a speech is not a one-time thing. It's an event that generates an opportunity for you to develop consistency and reputation for follow through. And it's something that I have to always work on. I know many, many, many people do. So consistency and being consistently engaged with people on a regular basis, whether it's once a month, once every 2 weeks, is something that will actually seed the market and help you generate the connection and rapport that will move your project. So with that, I'm going to open up our phone lines. If you're on the phone and you want to raise your hand for a question, press *2. That'll let me know that you've got one. And it can be anything that we've covered today, anything else. Also, if you have a specific event that you're going to and you want to know how to best work that event, feel free to let us know and I'll help you with that. I'm going to go over to our webcast and the Q&A over there and see if anybody's got a question. Okay, perfect. Oh, we do have one from the webcast. What do I do if I'm nervous when I'm meeting new people or walking into a room? Wow, that's a great question. There's a couple techniques and a couple ways that you can manage your nerves. Okay, so for everybody who's on the Facebook Live, you can see what I'm going to do. Imagine you're sitting in a chair, and before you go into an event, you can even do this in the car. You're sitting in your car. I want you to reach under the seat and pull down as hard as you can and hold it for a count of 3 while you take a few deep breaths, and then you let that go. It will actually free up the energy in your body. Your shoulders, your arms will become more relaxed so that you're more fluid. It uses up some of the adrenaline energy that can course through people's body when they're doing something they're not comfortable with. A deep breath. Sometimes you can just actually acknowledge that you're nervous to somebody, or, with one of the first people that you meet, you go, I'm kind of funny, but I found myself a little nervous coming in. I don't really know anybody here. How are you connected to this event? Is a great way to just sort of let it go. And most people will go, oh, I felt that way too. Or, oh, I'm here for my first time too. How did you find out it? And it can generate a conversation since you're connecting on a human level. Human level connection is a good way to go. I met somebody at the hardware show and we had a really human conversation for like half an hour because she had lost her mom had passed away. My mom has passed away. And we were talking about some of the experience of that. And this was somebody I'd never really met before, about 10 minutes before that. And she ended up sending us some referrals, helping us navigate a couple things on the show floor. She's very involved with a magazine that's really big in that space. So, because we were connecting emotionally, we became that we wanted to connect beyond that. Women tend to be better at the emotional piece than men, but I'm not saying that's an absolute by any stretch. So let's see. We've got Bill has a question or a comment here. Let's see. Bill on Facebook Live. I was at the National Hardware Show last year in the outdoor area with Peace Broom Garden Tool. Love the topic and would like to dive more deeply into presenting at the show. My tool at first is non-intuitive. A lot of times when people are demoing a product, they turn into all about the product, okay? They're staring at the product, they're looking down, they're not really asking great questions. So sometimes in the nervousness of, it's your first show or whatever, you become this person where you're like all about showing the broom, right? Instead of this person where you're up and you're going, so it's about telling an engaging story and asking great questions. So to present a product better, you actually want to find out a little bit about the person if you can, or find some common ground. So in the example of a broom, you know how every time you use a broom, it's like the leaves on your sidewalk go all over the place. Well, what we've done is we have this broom that actually eliminates that, and it does this and this. So when you're talking to the person, talk to the person. When you're demoing the product, demo the product and look there. Because where you're looking is where their eyes are going to go. And some people try and do both. They're like demoing the product over here on the right, and they're looking at the person straight ahead. And what happens is the person that you're talking to ends up very confused about where you want their attention. And they don't even know that they're confused. They can't make a decision. So they're not really paying attention to the demo, and they're not really paying attention to your words. Does that help you, Bill? Type something, I'll come back, okay? So let's see, we've got somebody from Washington, D.C. Phone number ends in 0447. Hi there, who is this?
Hi, Amy. It's Anya Linder.
Well,
How are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you this morning, Anya?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for this presentation. This is really interesting. And I found myself wondering about one thing that you mentioned a little while ago about providing value to people that you meet in different circumstances. And I wonder, for instance, if you're at a show or wherever, where you're at an event, or if you're creating a website for your product, how can you provide value to others? And I mean, like, genuine value to others when you're just starting out. Where do you start to sort of thinking?
I love this question.
To generate that.
I love this question because that's from a place of actually wanting to connect. So creating value for people, or giving them value, or giving to them, can be even as brief as a sincere compliment, or some encouragement. And people experience that like they've received something. It could be a testimonial for something that they're doing, or something, like if they give you a bit of information that you need, sending them a kind note is a way of giving to them. For example, I was talking about Paul and Dale, these two sales reps that we've met with over the years, and Paul, I was really aware that I wanted to give something to Paul at this show, and I had a couple things that would fit well for him as far as products that I had seen on the show floor. So notice, like, those weren't even projects that were our clients. They were things that I'd seen on the show floor that I thought would fit with his lines. So I took him over and I introduced him to those projects. Now that did two things. First off, it gave something to Paul, right? But it also gave something to that exhibitor. So the next time I was walking past their booth, they were immediately like, who's this person who did that, right? There was no direct economic gain for me in any of that. It was, how do I connect people that will make sense? The other piece is, we were having coffee and Paul mentioned something super exciting, that is a way to fund patent infringement lawsuits. So a lot of inventors don't prosecute their patents and tell people that they're infringing because they don't have the money for the legal fees to do that. Well, Paul's son has created a funding platform that actually does that. And so I immediately went, oh my gosh, he's got to meet John Calvert over at the United Inventors Association, because John used to work for the patent office and all these other things. So my give to Paul was to introduce him to John, which was actually also a give to John. So if you're in person, there's people looking for things. Now, here's the interesting part about this gift for Paul. It actually wasn't for Paul, it's for his son, right? But I happen to know that Paul adores his son. His son's in his 30s. Paul wants his son to be really successful. So in giving to Paul's son through Paul, we actually help Paul look like a rock star to his son, right? And we help Paul feel like he's contributing to his son. So there's a lot of psychology in there, and it was just from a natural place. It wasn't done in a calculated way of that's what's going to happen. But when you're looking for opportunities to give to people, that's the kind of thing that will show up. So when it's in person, look for what their interest is, just be in conversation and pay attention to what you have that doesn't even cost you anything. It costs me zero to go make those introductions. They're hugely valuable for the other people, though. Does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Amy.
Yeah. When it comes to your website, tip sheets are really good. Checklists right now are really popular. Don't go for white papers. They're usually too long. Infographics are a good way to give to people first. Educate them a little bit about the market or what they can do in response to a problem that they're having that's kind of related to something that your product would solve. I know that you have a feeding product, I don't want to say here exactly everything about it, but so you might talk about, well, how do you get people to be, children to stay present and be engaged with their food, or to like vegetables, or to sit in their high chair. You might put some tips or infographics out about that. Does that help?
Okay. Yes, it does.
Yeah. So give to your market so that they become accumulated as your pond. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to mute your line for your privacy. On the phone lines, you can press *2 to open, to let me know, raise your hand that you've got a question. Bill, I'm so glad that the earlier conversation about presenting and then demoing helps you. Everybody here that's hearing this needs to pay attention to this. Okay, so when you're demoing your product, be looking at the product and glancing up at the person at the most, but be primarily about the product. When you're talking to the person, talk to the person. You can still have your hand on your product, or occasionally reference down to it if you need to, but make very clear distinction about your eye contact when you're demoing versus when you're talking to somebody. Okay, you want the person you're talking to feel important to you and to feel you in the conversation and engaged with them. Okay. When you are about generating connection and rapport, it's not about tell long stories about your childhood. You can drop in tidbits so that you are a human being, right? But you don't have to tell them everything. You could just say, well, when I was a kid, yeah, I did that too. I did drawing. I was raised in a real small town, and I have college professor parents. So for me, I grew up digging clay out of a creek bed. So if I'm talking to creative people, I'll say something about that long, and it lets them know that I'm like them. So look for some commonality is another really good way to go. So if anybody wants, I'll run down through the list of skills and thinking and habits again. But with that, if nobody's got another question on the phone line, you can press *2 to raise your hand over there. I'm going to check our web Q&A one last time here. Cool. So we're clear on the webcast. And I think we're clear on the phone line. If anybody on the Facebook Live has a question, just type it in up there, and I'll take one last question from the phone line, come back to the Facebook Live, and then we'll be done for today. So this is from a phone number ending in 4737. Hi there.
Hey, Amy, how you doing? This is Anthony with New York.
Hey, Anthony. What's your question today?
Just a little bit off track, I guess, from what you're talking about. If somebody approached me for a licensing deal,
Uh-huh.
and they wanted 50, or if somebody approached me for a licensing deal, and they wanted 50 or 40%, as I guess like a finder's fee for them getting me a licensing deal, is that fair? Is that a fair percentage to give to somebody who's trying to get you a licensing deal?
Okay, so for everybody, the question is about what's the percentage that someone who's helping you with a licensing deal could ask for, and what would be fair. So I'm assuming that they're a licensing agent and they're going to help you negotiate the contract. Is that correct?
Yes, but they want a certain percentage for themselves.
That's very, very common with a licensing agent. Licensing agents typically get between 30 and 50% of your royalty.
Okay.
So I've seen some that want more. I've seen some that want less. We work with our consulting clients to get them prepared for licensing, and we do a lot of advising on licensing, and we don't ask for any percentage on the back end. So it just depends on how their financial model is set up, but 50% is a little bit high. 30 or 40 is a bit more customary. And it depends on how they're helping you and what they're going to be doing.
Okay.
So if they're just making introductions for you, then no, they should not be getting 50%. If they're going to negotiate it or they're going to be advising you and all that stuff, then yes, they should get more, okay?
Got it. Thank you very much.
Sure, you're welcome. I'm going to mute your line for your privacy. And we've got one last question from the phone line. Phone number ends in 5509. Hi there. Who's this?
Hey, it's Sabina.
Hey, Sabina. What's the question?
My question is, I am being approached by a number of these online companies that have kind of web TV shows. There's like Kathy Ireland, Kevin Harrington, to take our product on, and they have very high fees to shoot the videos, etc. Have you found those to be really successful, or am I just being pitched on something that may or may not be worthwhile?
You know, you have to look at it like, first off, who's going to own the footage? We've had some clients do things that are in the neighborhood of like $15,000 for those kind of shows. And we've always said, okay, let's talk it through, run the numbers. How much would it cost for you to shoot the footage by yourself? And you don't have the reach. So they're making a certain amount of money because they have reach that it can expose you to. But at the end of the day, the worst case is that you're going to own the footage, assuming that you check the contract and that you do own the footage. So we've had clients that have said, you know what, I'm okay with paying this much money because here's how much that footage would cost me. I'll have access to it afterwards. I'll have the edited spot. So yeah, that's okay. You have to look at it like right now on traditional television, not much is working. It's really more about the internet TV kind of things like you're talking about. So it depends on the individual one. I happen to know Kevin. I don't know Kathy Ireland personally, but Kevin has done some things that make sense for people and where you at least break even, which is a good start. But definitely check the contract for who owns the footage, who owns the copy, because some people will do it as a way to get a professional copywriter to write a script. They don't realize that the infomercial company or the television shopping channel, meaning the internet shopping channel in this case, will own the script and you can't use it later. So pay attention to all those pieces as you're evaluating. We've seen it work out for some people, and we've seen it work out poorly for a lot of people too. So it depends on how the deal is structured.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I'm going to mute your line for your privacy, and I think we are complete for today. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show and for asking some really great questions. We will be putting a blog post up about this on our website soon, so you can definitely check it out. We've got a lot of really good content going on right now. And we will be doing the Creating Top Products training. It is coming out, I promise you. I'll be in the studio quite a bit this month and for the next 6 weeks, finishing the recording. So you'll see some email about it where I want to make sure that we're covering everything you want to know about in that. So we will send out an email asking you to give us any information that you'd like to know about, questions, etc. So we make sure we answer those. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today and for joining us and for holding space and bringing your presence to the show. I really appreciate it. tell your friends, tell any other people that you have around you that are trying to do a product business or doing one or are doing company turnarounds. We do a lot of work in that area, and would love to have them join us on these and get connected. So with that, everybody, thank you so much. We'll see you in, the next show would normally be on Memorial Day, which is a Monday here in the US. We are going to move it that week, probably to the Tuesday. So the next call is probably going to be Tuesday in 2 weeks. So we'll send you an email and let you know for sure. But everybody, thank you so much again, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless. Bye.